Om Shanti. Happy Makar Sankranti wishes to everybody. Makar Sankranti is celebrated in almost all states of India under different names. So it is celebrated as Uttarayan, Makar Sankranti or Sankranti, Magara Vilakku, Pongal, Hangarai, Kumbh Mela, Ganga Sagar, and several other names. Though the names differ, the way they celebrate remains the same throughout India with very minor variations. So, Sankranti is a 4 day celebration. A day before that is people they use old clothes and old materials, wooden materials to create bonfire. In Tamil Nadu, Sankranti is celebrated as Pongal and it marks the first day of the month Thai. And this is also the day in which the sun changes its direction towards north. But a day before that is celebrated as Bogi, which is the last day of the previous month, Margari, which is considered both auspicious and at the same time unlucky. So people don't have any celebration like marriages during the month of Margari. To understand the real meaning of these 4 days celebration, you need to be familiar with the Kalpa cycle of 5000 years. The world was heaven in the first half of Kalpa, that is for the first 2500 years, followed by hell the last 2500 years. So towards the end of the old world or hell or Kali Yuga, God himself comes from his abode called the soul world, Parandam or Parlok. That is where God Shiva resides all the time as a point of light without taking birth in the earth, just like us. We souls also resided with God Shiva, but as I mentioned, the only difference between God Shiva and all other souls is we take birth. So we enter this birth and death cycle, but God stays away from this. But 100 years before the destruction of the world, God comes to inform about this time cycle and the world destruction so that he makes us ready to enter the new world, Satyug. So whatever God does in the last 100 years through his teachings is being celebrated as many functions, including Bogi, a day before Sankranti, where we burn the old wooden materials in bonfire. So the secret behind that is, while we were in heaven, the new world, everything we see, we listen, that gives nothing but happiness. That is why it is called heaven. We were filled with health, wealth, peace, and blissfulness throughout our life for the first 2500 years. Because the world was new, so we didn't suffer. And when it becomes 2500 years old, this world becomes hell, because of which we start suffer in the form of diseases, natural calamities, and poverty. The reason for that is while we were in heaven, we were soul conscious. That is, we considered ourselves to be a soul that shines like a tiny star in between the eyebrows, which is why we have this habit of wearing religious symbols in between the eyebrows. So we were soul conscious throughout. So we didn't fall for the external attractions of the world. So we didn't fall for lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego, these five vices which are the root causes for all problems and pain and suffering. Since we stayed out of these five vices for the first 2500 years, we had nothing to worry about. All we had was peace and happiness. But after the completion of first 2500 years, we forget that we are in fact souls. Instead, we considered ourselves to be this perishable body, thereby becoming addicted to the sensual pleasures and the five vices, because of which we start making sin after sins. So after accumulations of sins to a certain level, we started experiencing punishment in various forms like diseases and betrayal, natural calamities, and so on. So God comes in the last 100 years, he enters an old man's body directly and starts giving his knowledge that is required to save humans from the sufferings due to their past sins, and also to help humans to enter heaven by teaching about the good karma, so that they can increase the good accounts that makes them eligible to enter heaven and to reach the highest status of heaven, which is Sri Narayan and Sri Lakshmi, the greatest king and queen of Satyug, the new world. So what is the eligibility? We should become as pure as we were in the beginning of the world in heaven. But now we have become so corrupted that every single individual in this world is filled with lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego. So God gives us a very simplified yoga technique to burn all our sins, which is we need to consider ourselves as souls again, that is separate from this body, and we need to remember God also as a point of light, because he is also a soul just like us, which is why he is called the Supreme Soul, Param Atma. So he resides in this golden red colored world. So we need to remember God as a star shining in the golden red colored sky. We need to remember him as lovingly as our Father, because he is the Father of all souls all the time. Depending on how much time you spend in remembering God as a point of light, our sins gets burnt. So to celebrate this process of burning our sins in the last 100 years, people in Bhakti Marg, in the path of devotion, burn bonfire a day before Sankranti. Because Sankranti in many places is considered the new year. So obviously a day before Sankranti is the last day of the last year or the old year. So this is the new world, this is the world. Everything in this world gives us nothing but pain and sorrow. The root cause for the pain and sorrow is the attachment we had over people, over things, over our achievements, and so on in the world. That is why God says that after taking this knowledge, you should consider yourself to be dead from the world. By dead, you are coming out of all the behaviors that you possessed in the world, like lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego. You need to burn them. How do we burn them? By remembering God as much as possible. Why do we burn them? Because that's how we become pure as we once were in the heaven. And also it is by becoming that pure we can get back to heaven, because this world is going to be renewed into the new world. That's why the world destruction happens. It's in a way renewal of the world. It happens by nature, but it is you who should put effort for you to be able to enter heaven. All you need to do is 1. Remember God. 2. Remember His teachings. God enters an old man's body and gives His divine teachings called Murli, which is available absolutely free of cost in all Raj Yoga meditation centers spread across the globe. You can find the links of the YouTube channels and websites that provide you Murlis in all languages. Please make use of it, because that's the only knowledge given directly by God during the end times that's going to save you from all the sufferings due to our past karma. So we need to consider ourselves to be the soul, but it is not that easy, because everything in this world that you see, you listen to, makes you body conscious again and again. So, because everything you see promises some kind of pleasure. So, if a beautiful girl passes in front of you, automatically your eyes follow her, because you are that addicted because of the lack of power in this soul, because of body consciousness. So now we need something that's going to give us more pleasure compared to the sensual pleasures. And God says, you, in addition to remembering God, also has to remember everything about heaven. How beautiful you were in heaven, how beautiful your palaces were made up of gold and diamond. Despite that, there were no doors or windows, because nobody knows what stealing is. People in heaven, they're called deities. They were so divine in nature that lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego are totally out of their imagination. Everybody there would be ever healthy, ever wealthy, and filled with divine qualities. So, just by seeing them, we become so happy. Everything you see in heaven makes you more and more happy. So it is by having your mind on heaven constantly and by remembering God constantly, you will find yourself coming out of all the sensual pleasures gradually. So that is what we do. A day before Sankranti, we burn the old materials. What gives us the strength to burn them? It is the Sankranti celebration that we have in our mind that gives us joy to burn our old things very happily. Likewise, it is by having the happiness of heaven in our mind, we burn everything we had ourselves attached to with the old world burnt. So we remember God and we are getting the power to burn these five vices that is the root cause of all problems. So what do we do the next day, the main day of celebration, Sankranti or Pongal? So that is when we wake up early, and in some states people take a holy dip in the holy river or ocean. In many places in Bengal, they take holy dip in Ganga, Sagar, the place where the river Ganges meet the Bay of Bengal. And in other places, they take holy dip in the holy ponds and they offer water to God Shiva. And in some places, they worship Goddess Mahalakshmi. So in many places, Sankranti marks the first day of the new year. So that represents the first day of heaven. Heaven is filled with everything throughout, but still in the beginning everything will be 100% full. Whether it's the divine qualities of humans, whether it's wealth, health, everything will be 100% full, or it is overflowing. So that is why in Tamil Nadu they have this habit of cooking Pongal, where they boil rice with jaggery and fresh milk and allowing it to boil over the vessel. So this overflowing of Pongal represents heaven, the very first day of heaven, where everything is overflowing, whether it's health, wealth, everything. And they cook Pongal before sunrise and offer it to Sun, God. So actually this heaven is considered to be the unlimited day, and this hell is considered to be the unlimited night. It is also mentioned in Bhagavad Gita as Brahma's day and Brahma's night. Just as night becomes day due to the coming of sun, this unlimited night becomes day because of the arrival of the Son of Knowledge, God Himself. So it is through his knowledge that we become eligible to enter heaven. He is worshipped as Son. But now people forget about God and they just worship the physical sun, which is giving nothing but light. So in all parts of India and outside India, during Sankranti, it is common that they all worship the sun. And nobody knows the link between a day before Sankranti and Sankranti. So a day before that, they created bonfire out of the old materials. They burned the old materials. It is by burning our old vices, by remembering God, that we are receiving heaven that is filled with overflowing wealth, health, peace, and prosperity. Here in hell, especially towards the end of Kali Yuga, people are so sad and they work really hard to survive. They work like animals. But in heaven, not only humans, even animals, they will be happy. They don't have to work hard because everything will be available in plenty. That is why the next day in all parts of India they decorate cows and there will be procession of cows, and in some places there will be game between humans and cows. It is commonly called the bullfighting or buffalo fighting. You know why they actually celebrate that? Because in heaven, not only humans are loving to each other, but also animals are loving to each other, and even with humans, they are so loving. By animals, I don't mean only cows and all domestic animals, but also lion and tiger. Such wild animals will also be loving to humans. That is why it is mentioned in all religious literatures that cow and lion take water from the same pond at the same time in heaven, because they don't feed on each other, they feed on plants and grasses. So they don't even intend to hurt each other. So think how beautiful heaven would be. Just to mock our loving relationship with wild animals, we can't play with a lion and tiger now. You know what would happen if we attempt to do that. So instead, they have taken cows to play with. You know what? In heaven, there will be no boundaries. There's no need to pay income taxes, because even the king and queen, they'll be very rich. Why should they ask money from the subjects? So it is by remembering God and becoming pure, we are creating heaven on earth. If a king conquers a place to demonstrate his success, he hoists a flag in a place that is very tall, like the mountain. But here, we conquer the whole world through the power of yoga, not through fight, not by any means of violence, but just by remembering God, we are conquering the whole world. So where can we hoist flag? to show our success. What is the tallest point? That is why people have this habit of um, flying the kites. So, to show that the whole world is ours. And in the final day, people visit each other's home. In Tamil, it is called Pongal, which means seeing each other. As with all festive occasions, we create sweets and distribute among our neighbors. Sankranti is basically the harvest celebration. So we worked really hard before that, and we are reaping the benefit of that during Sankranti. Likewise, we worked really hard during the last 100 years in conquering these 5 vices, and we are reaping the benefit of that in heaven for the first 2500 years. We work just few years because not everybody is going to remember God continuously for 100 years. Not everybody is going to get this knowledge at the beginning itself, right? So it's going to be just 10 to 30 years or 50 years, that's it. But the benefit of it is going to be throughout 2500 years. In the 4th day of Sankranti celebrations, or the final day, one peculiar thing happens, especially in Tamil Nadu. The hard-working laborers, they visit shops and homes, and the owners of the shops and homes, they offer them money, and sometimes even more than money, like dishes or clothes. But the strange thing is, those laborers are unfamiliar to the shopkeepers and the owners of home, but still they offer. You know what it represents? Because that particular day, Kanum Pongal, is for visiting friends and family members, but here we are being visited by total strangers, the hardworking laborers. They don't work for us, but still we are giving money. And today people, out of selfishness, they say, why should we give you money in the first place? But still some give them. But that represents how kind we were in heaven to each other, how we treated everybody as our family member. So it is only in heaven where the whole world will be like a single family, and there will be a single kingdom, single language, so they don't find any reason to fight with each other. So that is the place of true happiness and peacefulness. But if you want to enjoy happiness now, it is quite impossible, because everybody have their own ways. But that is not so in heaven. Everybody will be following the same way. They are being trained to follow the same way by the teachings of God in the last 100 years. This Sankranti is also being celebrated as Hangarai in Tripura, and the reason behind that is very peculiar. So I find it justifiable to dedicate a whole new video for that topic. So wait for that in the upcoming video. And I must mention this. In Kali Yuga, in bullfights, many times people are getting killed by cows. That's Kali Yuga. But in Satyug, we play with what we consider now as deadly animals like lion and tiger, but they don't even intend to hurt us. Here, the supposedly loving animals like cows and dogs, they sometimes hurt people, they even kill people. See the difference, the vast difference between heaven and hell. So all we need to do to enter heaven is very simple. Just remember God as a point of light as much as possible. That's it. It is by making this effort, which is really easy, that we are going to save everything that is required for the next 2000 or even 5000 years. It is now we are creating our own fate for the next 5000 years. During Sankranti, people take holy dip in river and ocean. But here we are dipping or immersing ourselves in the ocean of knowledge, the God Himself, in remembrance of God and also in remembrance of the knowledge given by God called Murli. So it is by filling our mind with the knowledge points or Murli points that we are slowly getting rid of all the vices and become filled with all the divine qualities like purity, peacefulness, blissfulness. They worship the physical sun. We don't worship. Instead, we remember the Son of Knowledge, the God Himself. They worship just for a day, for the whole year. But we remember God every single second for the whole of this birth. That's how we become the King of Kings, Sri Narayan. We can become Sri Narayan. All we need to do is to be cautious of spending our every single second only in the remembrance of God and not getting distracted by any worldly attractions. This is called Raj Yoga, and the deities you find in Hindu temples, they are doing Raj Yoga. So they are in the remembrance of God and they bless you with everything which is as per the direction of God. It is by blessing others that you bless yourself. It is by doing good to others that you are creating your own good for the next 5000 years. Thank you so much for watching this video for this long, and please subscribe to this channel to get many videos revealing deep spiritual secrets. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit the thumbs up and share this with your friends and families. And I look forward to your valuable comments in the comment section. Thanks again for watching.